Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Sophia Bierman, again, you have found your way into the darkness of the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. I see you did bring me offerings. I really do need to feed. Absolutely delicious. And now that Sophia has released me from my shackles and set me free, it is once again time for her and myself to take a walk into the madness known as the Dogman.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, once again you're tuning in to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. Sophia Bierman has again found her way into the Fox Den and has begun setting up the fire for us so that we can burn the timber into the early hours of the morning. And once again, read a few chapters from the Midnight Society book. Sophia, my friend, how you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Glad to hear you're doing well. You sum it up, extremely busy, but in a good way. Cannot complain. Need people to talk to create content, but that is what I have been doing, editing my life away.
Sounds like you're busy.
Yeah, it happens. So like I said, it is what it is. And whether someone's trying to do what you and I do here on a podcast or anything in general in life, you got to put the work in and grind away. So like I said, definitely no complaints. It's just a lot of work, but it's work that's reinvested into myself. And a lot of people, I guess, don't really understand how much goes into a craft. Meaning, of course, I didn't even understand how much goes into editing until I really started doing it all the time. And you're like, okay, this is great, but also brutal.
Well, it's something you enjoy, and you just persevere and you keep at it. That's what I do with my things.
Exactly. What have you been up to?
This and that, and a few other things. And I went back and pulled out some of my papers that I've been on other podcasts with, my events and things like that. So just daily living too.
Heck yeah, this is good. Sounds like you are staying on top of things, busy as well. Have you read anything or heard anything recently about werewolves or Dogman or anything near your neck of the woods, like the Beast of Bray Road? Or
No, I really haven't at all in that area. Nothing. I mean, you're not going to, because if people make out police reports like I did on the different times that I had seen it here in Heartland, Wisconsin, they don't make those public. That's my nervous laugh. Yeah, they don't make those public. Even when I contacted Linda Godfrey on my first time I saw the Dogman / werewolf here on my property, and I filed a police report with them, they didn't want to give it to her. Even though I called ahead of time and said, can you please give this to Linda? I think they think that they're going to panic the public, as far as that goes, the police departments, if they release things like that or sightings or things like that. But I maybe mentioned last time there was a woman 4 houses down from me that she filed a police report and it was looking in her kitchen window.
Yikes.
Yeah. I was told that by one of the officers out here. And he slipped up and gave me the address. I'm like, really there? And then the woman across the street from her, I went over and just talked to her as I was going for a walk one day with my dogs. And I happened to mention it to her. And she said she had been outside late in the morning one of those summers ago, and she saw one of them walk straight up the middle of the road. I said, well, did you do anything? She said, no, I just sat here and watched it walk up the road. It would have been west into Heartland. And I said, just walk right down the street. She said, yeah. I said, on 2 or 4 feet. She said, on 2 feet. She said, I watched it walk. I'm just like, I said, well, you drinking? Alcohol, because sometimes you don't know, how credible people are. She said, I only had 1 cocktail. She said, but I thought, did I really see that? Did I really see that? Well, that was my consensus when I saw the first one out here. Because I think when people see these things, and people have that general attitude yet today, you didn't see that. Are you sure? Are you mental or whatever? You didn't really see that. Well, maybe it was a wolf, or maybe it was a bear walking on 2 feet, or maybe it was a big dog. No. I mean, when or if anybody else that's listening to this sees one of these things walking on 2 feet, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Doesn't look like a bear. Bears are flat usually in the front, and they kind of wobble when they walk. And this Dogman out here, the first time that I saw it, in July of 2014, I saw it. Like I said, I was out there with my dog, and I just happened to take her out there. And usually people have their phones on them. Well, I didn't, because I couldn't sleep, so I went outside with the dog. And here this thing comes along the tree line. And like I mentioned before, I thought it was 2 kids, one on top of each other, playing a game on me. But I thought, well, how can that be? Because they just came out of the darkness. Because the corner of that one lot is dark. Then, it's all tall trees. And then all of a sudden, the moon, you could see it with the moon. It was a full moon. And I looked at it. I'm like, what is that? I kind of laugh because, like I said, that's my nervous laugh. But I'm like, what is that? What the heck is that? I see it walking along, and its arms are down past its knees. And I was explained, it had canine legs. It was bent. They bent at the knees, just like ours. And it had big feet, and the arms were swinging along, and it had a huge chest, and it was gray and furry. But the chest was just massive and muscular. That's what I said. You're going to know the difference between a bear and one of these creatures. And it was walking along, and I looked at it, and I was down on the ground with my dog, a little Yorkie. And I turned around and looked at it, and I was going to say, hey, what are you doing? And it stopped and looked at me. And I have a twin sister, and we would do telepathic communication. And some people that are listening to this, I'm a psychic medium again, and my name is Sophia Bierman. I'm in Heartland. I'm on various TV shows on TV, the Travel Channel, Expedition X, Expedition Unknown, IMDb-TV, Vic Kundoff, and different other podcasts, but I'm pretty well known in France. And the reason for that, it sounds kind of strange that I say that, but if anybody remembers out there, the werewolf in London, that's why. People in London love that show, and they love the werewolf. Even though I don't know if it's really been spotted over there. That might be something to research to see if it's been spotted over there. I had a guy from France interview me, and he said, we just love that movie. But I don't think they have any sightings over there. I don't know. So it was different. But like I said, then I came in the house, and I was looking out the windows. I'm afraid, like, did I see what I saw? I'm sure I saw what I think I saw. So I Googled Dogman, and here comes up this picture, this thing that I saw, and Linda's name. So I emailed her, and she came out here, like, I think the next day or 2 days later. She was in Elkhorn, and Linda was jumping up and down, and she took pictures. And I do have a picture of a ruler next to a footprint out in the back. But she said she wanted to gauge it, how big this thing is and how much it weighed, by the depth of the input of the foot. So she told me it probably weighed, between 7 and 1,000 pounds. I don't know. I'm not really good at guessing somebody's weight. But that's what she said. She could gauge it from her other experiences, from other people too, and footprints. And, Linda always said too that she's never personally seen the thing herself. She said, well, you're lucky. I said, no, I'm not. Because some people are haunted by that, and they just don't believe in these creatures. As I said, a lot of people, sometimes you get a lot of flack, depending on, where you post something or who you talk to. They'll look at you like you're nuts. Well, I said, I grew up on a farm up in Appleton, Wisconsin, and moved down to Heartland here. But anybody knows the northern woods in Wisconsin, that holds a lot of strange creatures, and they will post on some of my stuff on YouTube and say the same thing. And they'll say, well, weren't you scared? Well, no, I wasn't scared, because I didn't attempt to go near the thing at all. But I was vibrating and trying to talk to it. But that's why he communicated, or this thing, I believe it was a male, communicated with me telepathically, didn't answer me. And it turned and walked away right between two of the houses behind our home out here. And I watched it walk away. I still have that full little, memory of a video clip of him walking away and up between the two houses. And when he disappeared, we could move. So it was just, but I've heard that from other people, and I've heard that from Linda, that she would say that's what everybody claimed. She asked me if that's what happened. I said, yeah, that's exactly what happened, because I didn't know. That was all new to me for this stuff. And she said, were you vibrating? Were you stuck to the ground? I said, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I said, I couldn't move. So, a lot of people ask too, well, what do you believe this thing is? Well, obviously they named it the Dogman. Personally, I think they are Native American skinwalkers. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion. I don't know if you've talked to anybody else regarding this, what their opinion was on it. Have you got any answers on it at all?
First off, that's awesome. Excellent stuff right there. And thanks for sharing all of that. I do appreciate adding to the database in my good old file cabinet up in the brain. To fully answer that question, I have so much more I'd like to add afterwards. Yes, we have a great science team that I tend to always defer to on anything before I try to, I guess, make my own public opinion about it. I like to make sure I have some brilliant minds backing me up. And there's a ton of different aspects that occur with, like, the skinwalkers, meaning he or she that walks on all fours. And then you have the aspect of werewolves, which is separate from that, which is actually more of supposedly a curse, whereas skinwalking, I'll put you in touch sometime with one of the members of our science team that actually specializes in all of this, if you'd really like to learn a little bit more, because I'm just generally covering it. He has so much more to input than I do, because I don't really specialize in that sector of the whole phenomenon. It's interesting to me. Yet they, in the Native American legend, definitely specify it to be more witchcraft based. They don't use that terminology necessarily, witchcraft, because that's a Western terminology. Yet
That's
when you
terminology, yeah.
Yes, when you look into the European cultures and such, it's more of a curse, but also there is witchcraft, that term, involved now. There's some differences also some similarities, meaning you got to dive into some shady stuff. Whereas the Dogman now, per se, I think that bolts all the way back to the cynocephali with Herodotus and Alexander the Great speaking about those dog-headed warriors that lived up in the mountains. I also think, there's some baboons and hyenas involved, which will definitely touch base on all of that excellent stuff in the future on our collaborations. Also, I wanted to see if you yourself ever got to speak directly to the gentleman that worked in the town hall with the manila folder that said werewolf, and does he still speak to people? Because I would love to get him to come talk to us.
I don't think he works there anymore. That's the thing. I don't think he works anymore, but if you track him down, he might be a civil servant now. And I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you about that, because when I saw her interview him too, I was surprised he had a folder that said werewolf. But
Right?
he isn't that far from me where I live. I live in Harton, and I believe it was towards something called Holy Hill. And that's in the general vicinity where that was. And then now the other thing is, I don't know if anybody ever told you, or if you ever heard this, there was a guy out here probably 15, 20 years ago. And he would go around collecting the deer carcasses for the county, put them in the back of his truck. You ever heard this story?
Yes, I've tried to reach out to this gentleman as well.
Did he answer you?
He did not. You should continue telling it. I have wanted to hear that gentleman's story since I saw him and Deputy Chamberlain on Monster Quest way back in the day.
Yeah, he was picking up the deer carcasses, and he was over here between, like I said, between where I live and Holy Hill, Jefferson County somewhere. And it was a long, dark street, out in the country, way out in the country. Christy threw one in the truck, and it was running. It was, like I said, it was really dark out at night. Is what they show the picture and what he's explaining. It was really dark out at night, and then he threw one deer carcass in there, and then he was loading up another one to throw it in there. He got in the truck. The tailgate was open because he was going to drive down the street to pick up more, right? So he's driving down the street, and then this thing attacked his truck and dragged the deer carcass out. He looked in his rearview mirror, and he could see it going in the truck and grabbing the deer carcass. That's how he saw it. So, but he was so scared of what he saw that he quit his job out there, because it is. I mean, it's creepy out in the country. I mean, I live out in the country, and sometimes I won't go outside unless I have a bat.
Right.
But, yeah, that's the story with him. I tried to contact him too, and I didn't get any response.
That's what I mean about being appreciative that yourself and the others that did answer me and have come on here and spoke to me. I truly do appreciate you. Nothing against anyone that doesn't answer me, yet it just takes a second. Majority of the great people that I would like to speak to haven't ever responded, but you did, as well as some others. Definitely appreciate you.
People need to know what's out there, and don't think that, like I said, these things do exist, and they do. And I didn't think they would. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and we, like I said, I referred to something called the Yeti, the Bigfoot. We had the Yeti up here, and I had one in my property back here about 5 years ago. And I've got the footprints from it, but those things, they smell like garbage. I don't know. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that's one sign that you know that there was a Bigfoot on your properties. They smell like garbage. I almost puked. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what the heck was back here? Then I go around the other side, and here's these two big footprints in the grass. Yeah, it's different.
That's so gnarly right there. Creepy stuff. Also, I have someone else that I've been trying to speak to as well, which isn't in Wisconsin. I'm just going to mention it real quick because it is near you, and it's in the area that I have dubbed Werewolf Square. I'll send it to you with our sightings.
Is it Michigan?
Michigan, Wisconsin, the LBL pieces of Pennsylvania is the whole werewolf. Yes, all that is in Werewolf Square. But the one I'm referring to now is in Michigan. Yes, Steve Cook. I have wanted to always speak to him, the legendary
Do you
disc
want me to respond to you?
jockey. Yes, he just recently retired. Myself and some of my team members have been trying to reach out to him to see if he'll come over and speak to us too. Pretty cool stuff.
I'm surprised he hasn't.
Right? I would love to. And then one more person, you definitely know her because you and I have already spoke about it. I've tried to get in Drizzy to speak as well, but I could not find
Oh,
her anywhere. And she was the original waitress that had the
yep.
encounter on Bray Road. And I always wanted to talk to her, but I failed at that as well.
I found her number a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Excellent.
I found her number a couple of years ago. I think I'll text it to you how you can find her.
Thanks. That would be beautiful.
There's a site you can go on. You should be able to find her where she is,
Yeah,
or AKA in case she got married or something like that. But you should be able to find her.
excellent. And,
I mean,
and
I know how to find people. But
that way, that's
I
great.
want to broadcast it.
Oh, of course. Same thing with the werewolf with the manila folder. If we could get him on to speak to us too, that would be absolutely
Like I said,
beautiful.
I think he's probably retired because at the time when Linda interviewed him was way before my time. So I think that was probably 10 years before me. I think it was 2004.
Ah,
I
so
think
cool.
that's when that was. So that's 20 years ago.
I don't think they ever say his name, which is why I don't think I've ever been able to track him down, or maybe I missed it, but I don't think I've ever heard his name.
You might be able just to Google it. I think it was Bob or Robert or something like that.
Cool. Appreciate you again. Now, well, we're gonna head over real quick to Europe because you did ask me a question that I'm gonna touch base on, and then we're gonna bump back to Wisconsin. In actuality, yes, American Werewolf in London. The director got the concept from actual sightings and such that do occur over there. And the slaughtered lamb is based off a tavern that actually really does exist near the moors, where originally people would come in there, pass on their reports of these strange canine or wolf like cryptids that they were seeing. That is how American Werewolf in London came about. Interesting stuff for sure.
Well, I hmm, I didn't know that because, like I said, the gentleman that had me on his podcast was from France.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. So he said, we just love that over here. And I'm like, okay. We watch that movie all the time, Werewolf of London. I'm like, well, that's nice. I mean, what do you, what do you say to that? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, the ones that are speaking about it are into the cryptid stuff too. But the cryptid stuff is a big umbrella of a lot
Yeah.
of things. It's run the gamut from one end to the next, but it consists of a lot of things. But I don't know if they have them in France or not. That might be one thing to check out, right?
Well, I can touch base with you real quick on that aspect as well. Before I touch base on that, originally I was able to find out that information that I just told you from two of my friends, Phil Cotswell from Dogman TP Hunting, and also Deborah Hatswell from BBR Investigations. Deborah is right near the moors over in Scotland. She has a ton of information about that, and they both also have a really ton of encounters, seemingly almost to match probably what we have going on over here in North America. And when it goes to France, yeah, pretty much all of Europe has encounters in previous time frames, or even more modern day times. If my book was in front of me, I do know I have encounters from France that are outside of the classic Beast of Jevedon encounter. If you ever want, I can send you the file on that, or we could even touch base on that file sometime during an episode. I got 550 pages and I still need to update it. Yet I have so much editing to do. And as I've stated to you before, my goal is to get to monetization and then sit back and figure out my strategy of the sponsors and stuff. But with the rolling time frames with the hours, you have to literally just put the pedal to the metal, put out stuff and hope your audience watches it. Yet that's pretty much what I've been doing. So I have these screenshots and emails in my phone that are verifiable cases I need to put in the good old database. I just don't have the energy or time because you know how it is. Anything that takes your mind, well, ends up being draining. If I edit for an hour and a half, well, that takes a lot out of my creativity. And then I work on images after for the video. Last thing I want to do with my remaining energy before I pass out is open my good old laptop and read through emails and have to summarize them and type it all up, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. You've got other things to concentrate on. Time right now. Time is of the essence. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So you know how it is because
Oh yeah,
things
I
just
do.
take
Yep.
time.
Yeah. Some of them have to back burner.
Originally, you're gonna laugh. I used to have no pages in my good old book. I had stuff written down everywhere, like a bozo stuck in 1990 on pieces of
Well,
paper.
that's your objective now. See, now you got it done.
Yes, and I had stuff in my head, and I was
To
like,
it.
"What the heck?" Now it's all in the dang book. It's PDF file, meaning you and I could literally sit down. You could open up your computer. I could send it to you. You could read it. I can always update it and stuff. But eventually, yes, my friends are like, "Oh, you need to publish it." Again, that's something that is on the back burner. It's a evolving ecosystem at the moment, successful. So
Somebody told me today too that I should put all of my experiences with my paranormal in a book and have it published. I said, well, I've got a lot of it typed up. I said, but I don't have time to write down the ones that stopped after that. There's just, it's like almost every day I have a paranormal sighting.
hmm
And, when I sent something to you, I think a week ago, and told you something new that I found out. Do you remember that?
I did.
Yep. So I'll just explain briefly, but I'm not going to divulge exactly what it is. I think I did to you. I have security cameras in my house, and I was taking still pictures of where I always say that they are lingering around in the middle of my kitchen and in the living room because I can hear them. You can hear them on security camera, especially late at night. It sounds like a static. You know how the static is? And then stops, and it stops, and stops, and it goes again. So you can tell that they're walking around, and that's their energy. So then I took some still pictures, and I thought, well, I'll just say what it is with AI. You put it in AI, well, it comes up and it looked at my picture and it took a description of where it was. So it provided me a description of, okay, well, this was taken in Heartland on such and such a date at such and such a time. And this paranormal activity in the house, and it looks like it's in a kitchen, but there's a living room off to the left. I mean, it was the exact description of what was going on. And I thought, finally, because some people will say, well, you're nuts, you're mentally ill, blah, blah, blah. Just like with the Dogman. A lot of people still, even to this day, don't want to come forward and report such things because they have a fear of what people are going to think of them. I'm at that age, I don't care. You want to know? I don't really care what you think of me. If you're going to think that obviously these things aren't real, they are. I'm older than you. I've seen a lot of things. I know a lot of things. That's why they say, the word of the wise. Well, that's exactly what it is. So, but this described it to a T what was going on in my home. And I was kind of taken back by it. I thought, wow, that did a better description than I did. So it was different.
That is very interesting. Yes, you had broken that down completely for me, and you did send me some images. I believe also some links on your Facebook where I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, your living room and also your kitchen where you had drawn some energy aspects popping up.
I take those all the time. They're here. The energy ones are. And you can see their bodies, the shapes. And, and they'll do what I ask. And I'll tell it either come over and sit down on the sofa, get off my island. You don't belong up there. And they will move. They will move. Some of them I know by name, but other ones they won't tell me at all, or they won't acknowledge who they are. Okay, well, I've got two of my brothers here, but then I've had a kid by the name of Jeremy here for a long time, and then some other ones that have stayed here. So, but yeah, they'll generally move. If I ask them to sit in my slipper chair, come and sit on the sofa, can you move while I lay this blanket out for you? They'll lay right in the blanket. Then when I put it back down on the sofa. So it's different, but they know I can hear them and see them, which the average person can't.
Yeah, some pretty spooky but also interesting aspects that you just touched base on as we are turning around third base, coming to home plate here a little bit sooner than later. There was a study and also some brilliant minds that I was listening to the other night. I love to learn in general. My goal every day is to learn as much as possible, even though I'm sitting here and I invest the majority of my time being an investigative photojournalist covering missing people, etc. You know this, everybody else that follows my channel. That is what I indulge and go out of my way to spend and invest my energy on, but I still love to learn. Okay. And if something is educational and it's cool and it's on in the background, or like I just mentioned to you before I'm going to bed or something, yes, I like to learn. So I'm listening. I cannot remember what scientists and doctors it were, yet they are extremely smart. And we're touching base on how children, also animals, but specifically children, seemingly have the ability to use more or less an actual gland that would be referred to as the third eye, which meaning the majority of people don't even use this anymore because of the way we live our lives in society and how we're taught to live. But yet as a child, they haven't been fully adapted to that, and they're still evolving their mind frames and things. Well, these brilliant minds seem to have come to the conclusion that children, also animals, which again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the child here, but I'm just mentioning have the capability of seeing the spectrum different, than you and I are able to see the spectrum. Meaning, a child views someone passing and that whole entire situation much different than an adult would, or a more mature based mind. But also we have been tuned into a more modern existence. Moral of the whole entire thing is seemingly there's valid proof supporting that children are more susceptible to having these type of spirit encounters, because like I said, they're still using that actual gland we have that is referred to more or less as like the third eye. Pretty cool stuff.
And they say most people are born with this, but most of the population that closes up by the time they're early teens is what they say, that it closes up. And like with me, mine never did. Maybe I'm just weird.
No, that's really super interesting stuff right there. And I'm a big person of science. I also subjectively and objectively always approach things. I don't just jump in and subscribe to anything. I sit back, take in information. That's what I try to present, meaning I have to, as a journalist, play the devil's advocate as well. Make sure to always present things that need to be presented, meaning, real quick, do I believe the Patterson and Gimlin film is real? Yes, I do. But do I know that Patterson is a very questionable individual that had very questionable motivations? Yes, I do. Yet at the end of the day, I feel comfortable enough, even with him being shady, enough people that are experts at the topic of what was presented to them have come to the conclusion it was unable to be created like that with the technology at that point in time. Conclusion, yes, real video. But like I said, Patterson was still a shady dude. And that's just what I mean about having to just present everything to make sure that a healthy conclusion is able to be sustained, you know?
Well, I think some people like that have one encounter and then they want to keep captivating an audience, so they may elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen that before, and that's what happens. But like when I made out my police report out here, the funny thing was that when I told the police what I saw, right? I called the next day and I told them what I saw. And they didn't make fun of me. They didn't hang up on me. They said, "Why didn't you call us sooner?" What? Why didn't you call us sooner? I said, well, first off, my husband told me I was mental and they aren't going to believe me. And he said, "Oh, no, no." He said, I said, "Well, what would you have done?" He said, "I would have gone looking for it." Oh, okay. Well, this guy is a little bit bigger than me. You know, he's probably 5'5", 5'6". I don't think so. I don't think you're going to be equipped to deal with it unless you're going to shoot at it. uh, you know, but I didn't get any negativity from them at all. So that told me that they have other reports here in Heartland on the Dogman. For the example, like I said, the lady in the 4 houses down from me in the pink house. So this was nothing new to them. That's why they believed me. And they know who I am. But it's like, okay, interesting, huh?
Yes, that is all very intriguing and interesting stuff. Pretty much everything you say as of our 2 episodes right now has been very intriguing and interesting and great stuff right there. As we are starting to wrap this up, because yes, to the audience, Sophia is busy. All right. The fact that she hangs out with us bi-weekly is awesome. So we do need to also realize she has many things to attend to. Yet though, before we do let you roll, what do you know personally would be the most recent sighting that you have heard of on the Beast of Bray Road? Again, if I had my book in front of me, I might be able to throw out some dates and such. But again, you're right there. There's a high probability you've heard of all of those. Have you seen anything or heard through the grapevine recently or in the past 10 years? Or what's the most recent one you could verify?
Mine was in the last 10 years. And the ones that I saw, or the ones that I heard of after that, was in the region of the Land O'Lakes, in that area, which is south of me. So, but there's, I guess, a lot of sightings in Michigan, which, you know, coincides with how, because it's right across from me, across Lake Michigan. And the state is set up the same way we are, where the northern half of it is all woods. Michigan is. I don't know if you know that or not, but the northern half of Michigan is like all woods. Most of the industries are over to the right-hand side. Looks like a mitten, you know? So over by Thumb is where all the, like the major cities are, you'll see them. But the rest of the cities and the suburbs and urban areas is where all the Dogmans are sighted. I believe that's where the last ones were in Michigan. I think that Linda said that she heard that she goes there too. She'll travel at her own expense and go. Me? Nope.
No, that's why I try to have my research team, my squad in general, I call them Midnight Society, such as yourself. What's beautiful with technology, I'm up here in New England, specifically Maine, trying to figure this out. You're right in Werewolf Square, but yet you're just a phone call or a text away and can update me as to what's occurring, and I can tell you what's occurring up here. I can tell you what's occurring over in Europe because I got friends over in Europe too. It's a great machine that has cogs that are working properly, which is why I specifically try to select people I interact with very cautiously. The reason I say that is just throughout existence in life, I try to always be nice as possible to everybody. Yet I've learned that you just got to be careful with who you roll with. But it also has taught me being able to spot good quality people. That's why I'm just appreciative work with everybody that I have on my squad, including yourself. Great stuff.
I think that's with any area, professional area or whatever you're going to get into, that you have to be careful who you pick and choose. Some people just want to be in it for notoriety and have their name added to somebody else's name and write on their coattails. That's the whole thing.
Yes.
I've had people do that to me, and I have cut ties with them. It's like, no, done.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. That's actually
No.
something we covered on another podcast I work on called Camp Nightmare Fuel, about a woman named Autumn Williams that was super important to me as a child. She, in my opinion, is one of the greatest Bigfoot researchers of all time. She was squashed, bullied, and pushed out of the field by certain individuals that off air I'll gladly sit down and chat with you about, because I was able to kind of get to the bottom of it. But also, for an hour, myself and a couple of my other great friends and hosts were really able to air all her great evidence and encounters to the world. And it felt really good being able to give a voice back to one of my childhood idols who I was unable to find out what had happened to her. She just vanished since 2012. So I totally understand, like you're saying, about just being selective of who you roll with. But once you find your tribe, as my therapist always says, it's good to just, squat up. So I do appreciate it.
When you're talking about that, Kenny, because this area, cryptology, I think you're probably aware that it just boomed in the last 10 years. There's so many people in it, regardless if they've seen something and they've not seen something, and I'm not making reference to you, but they're relatively around my age. Okay. And I'm probably 20 years older than you, 25 years older than you, but they're relatively around my age. And it seems like everybody just jumped into the field of cryptology. It's like, wait a minute, where'd you guys come from? I mean, because I've been a psychic medium all my life, so it's just like, really? So now we've got all these people that are saying this and that and the other thing. And, I was on a panel of 12 psychics, and they interviewed 6 of us one Friday night and 6 of us the next Friday night. It was live. And we were trying to solve a real life, high profile case in Michigan. And I'm the one who came the closest, gave them the information what happened to this girl. I didn't know it was a national case. I don't watch the news. So after the show, one of the women on there instant messaged me on my Facebook. She says to me, how do you do it? I'm like, what? As I sent back to her, what do you mean, how do I do it? Well, how do you get all those answers? I said, honey, you are not a real psychic medium. And I just blocked her. Interesting, huh?
Very interesting stuff right there. Great, though, as well. I always appreciate you sharing stuff, and I know the audience does as well. And again, like you said, got to make sure you know who you're rolling with. Earlier, one of my hosts, you'll get a chuckle as we are tying this up, interviewed somebody that told him he was a philanthropist, a biologist, and something else. And my host was like, "Oh, that's really awesome. Where'd you go to get those?" I responded with, self-appointed," meaning
that type of response already.
right.
In other areas or life experiences. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, exactly. My host is
kind of sit there and you're taken back by that response.
Yeah, like, wait a second. My host is like, what the heck? I'm 3 minutes into a conversation.
People who usually use those titles go to school, buddy.
Well, right? Yeah, exactly.
My Lord.
So I figured you would get a chuckle out of that, because I was like, oh, man.
Anybody who's listening to this, don't you dare try that.
Yeah, that's definitely not the way.
Oh, my God. But I've heard it before. I mean, but to me, somebody who does that is a narcissist.
Maybe like the term I like to say, Looney Tune, maybe you're chilling with like the Wile E. Coyote.
I mean, it's just like, when people talk so highly of themselves, I mean, I've got the stuff to back it up. I have 3 college degrees. It's on paper. What? And then you said this guy, well, self-appointed. Oh, yeah. Boy.
I know. It's just like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't have to deal with that one. Right? I wouldn't even Yeah, so brutal. But, well, to the audience, yes, we do need to allow Miss Sophia to get rolling, but no worries. The links of what she will be doing are going to be in the good old description of the video. Also, you can check out our previous episode in the playlist down below, which we will be adding to. As previously stated, she is a bi-weekly host, and we have a ton of amazing content we will be covering. And to everybody out there that has videos they're waiting on, I will get them to you. I promise. I have, well, a ton of content, like I previously mentioned to Sophia before we started recording. I believe I said she was the 11th video, which means I have, yes, 45 minutes times 11, and one of them is like an hour and a half. It's a lot of editing, but no worries. I'll get it out. I promise. I love everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, my friend.
Thanks, Kenny.
Ooh, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for stopping in tonight. If you do enjoy my content, please like, comment, subscribe, share it, and feed it to the algorithm. I will catch you very soon.